Hello, this is Mark Holmes, and we're in 2022, and we have our first via satellite Thursday morning conversation of the year. Super excited to bring this back, and we have a great person to start our conversations for this year. I'm delighted to welcome Vagan Shakhgildian, who is the president of Comtech Satellite Technologies, to our Thursday morning conversation. So welcome, Vagan. How are you today?
Thanks very much, Mark. I'm well and hope you are too. So very excited about the start of the new year, 2022. A lot of excitement, a lot of promise this year holds for all of us. And I'd like to take this opportunity and wish the best of everything, good health, prosperity, and new technology breakthroughs and successes to all the listeners.
Fantastic. Well, we'll talk about some new technology breakthroughs in a couple of minutes. Now, as we know, with these conversations, we sort of mix a different range of conversations and questions. So I'm going to ask you, Vagan, first of all, who is the person you most admire in the satellite industry?
Right. Well, it's kind of hard to pinpoint just one person, but I suppose the way I would answer this question, Mark, I would say that being an engineer, of course, and a lifelong fan of technology, science, research, and so forth, I most admire people who, and there are a number of them in our industry and I guess in high-tech industry overall, who combine engineering excellence and pursuit of new frontiers and science and technology with business acumen, with ability to turn those ideas, those technologies into reality, not only in terms of products, but also in terms of successful business ventures. And quite a few people stand out in our industry in that regard. And one of them is, of course, Mark Dunberg. He's one of the founders and longtime leader of Viasat Inc. He needs no introduction, really, but in terms of why I admire him and a few others too, but the answer I've already given. So it's because of all the things, relentless pursuit of excellence in terms of technology, technology leadership, but also ability to build and drive successfully throughout many years consistently an organization to success.
Good choice, and we've actually had Mark on the Thursday morning conversation as well, so you're in good company. Now, as you know, you and I have been in the satellite industry for a few years now. What do you think the coolest thing is about working in this industry?
I think, again, there are quite a few things that are pretty cool about working in satellite. One of them is, of course, the global, international nature of that industry. So it kind of stems from the fact that the satellites themselves, with the wide coverage and whatnot, global constellations these days, they're global by definition. And so basically, what this tells us is that necessitates partnerships and cooperation worldwide across multiple countries, multiple continents, multiple cultures. So you get people from all the continents at the fora, whether it's the satellite shows in Washington, D.C., or in the shows in Singapore and Amsterdam and so on. And you get different perspectives of things that you get from your colleagues worldwide. And we all speak the same language of satellite technology, language of information systems, language of kind of wireless communications. And that's what I think is pretty cool.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Comtech. I mean, we know right now, as we go into this year, we're entering into like a new era for our industry. We're entering into an era of constellations. We're seeing more satellites launched than ever before. It's such an exciting time, I think, for all of us who've been involved in the industry for a number of years. Comtech is a company we know very well, has been one of the technology leaders in our industry for many, many years. Tell us a little bit about what the company has got on deck in 2022 and why this is going to be a really exciting year for Comtech.
Right. Well, a lot of the excitement simply stems from the factors that you already mentioned, that there is a lot of new constellations, lots of satellites. We're talking hundreds and hundreds being launched, new frequency bands being introduced into practice in terms of practical implementation and so on. And we at Comtech have been around for a long time. So that's another example. I just didn't want to, when I talked about people I admire, I just didn't want to talk about my bosses because that wouldn't kind of sound right. But obviously our long-term CEO, now ex-CEO, Fred Kornberg was one of the founders of the company back in the day. We're talking about early 1970s. So 50 years in the industry is a long, long time for Comtech. And we do have a very, very solid track record of technology innovation and excellence. And we're going to build on that track record going forward in 2022. So specifically, so in no particular order, Mark, but those new constellations require obviously scale, scope and scale. And so in terms of just the sheer number of gateways, since we at Comtech are predominantly involved in supply of ground segment or the ground segment, then of course we're talking about a different order of magnitude in terms of the gateways and the amount of antennas, amplifiers, baseband equipment, IP routing equipment, and so on. And you need to have this sheer capacity in terms of your ability to execute those orders and fulfill the demand. And we definitely have that at Comtech. We're obviously not standing still. We're building actually several new factories as we speak right now. The two biggest ones being one in Chandler, Arizona, and another one in Basingstoke in England. And so those factories will allow us to meet that demand and actually set the capacity at the level which is required by those new constellations. And we also talking about our microwave and RF equipment. We have a leading position in V-band and Q-band. These are up-and-coming bands, as you know, for satellite communications, predominantly used these days for feeder links, but increasingly so in future constellations, even for the user terminals as well. So we have about 90% of installed base of V-band equipment out there. That current installed base is not that huge, but that gives us a very significant head start in future V-band projects. And last but not least, we're very well positioned in baseband systems, in modems. We're just about to launch our new Elevate product. We're very excited about it. It's a combination of the best of breed TDMA technologies and SCPC technologies, which has been the traditional mainstay of Comtech for many years. So these are the reasons why we look into 2022 with such confidence, Mark.
Fantastic. I mean, we certainly love talking about new technology. You mentioned Elevate there, and I know this is a big launch for Comtech. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why is it different to things that you've done before?
Well, you see, Mark, when we as Comtech, of course, came on board at Comtech as part of the UHP Networks acquisition. But when Comtech acquired UHP Networks, so the acquisition was announced in late 2019. At that time, Comtech actually stated very clearly, and Fred Kornberg, our then CEO, said it back then, that our intention is to build a combined product line, best-in-class VSAT product line, which will basically combine best elements of what is still known as HDNA, the access mode used in the Comtech Heights product, known for best efficiency and the verse effect waveform. It has a lot of advantages and it's known and loved. It's an award-winning technology by MNOs in particular around the world, used extensively in cellular backhaul and some other applications. And then UHP TDMA, which is another award-winning technology, best-in-class TDMA with superior efficiency and many other advantages. It took us a while, but finally that work is over. That effort is the initial phase, at least, of it is over. Of course, you're never done. You continue perfecting the product. That's why we're very excited that we are able to share this news with the customers and the industry as a whole. We believe it has cutting edge efficiency and scalability, can cater for all the networks with small to large. It has record-breaking throughput. We're talking about 2.6 gigabit in the outbound. We're talking about 200 megabits in the inbound, and I won't bore the listeners with any further numbers, but I will just say that at the end of the day, we're talking about technology, not just specific products and so on. At the end of the day, these days, everyone is hearing all sorts of acronyms that are coming at you from left, right, and center. We're talking LEO, we're talking MEO, we're talking new applications such as 5G, service orchestration, edge computing, and so on and so forth, right? And at the end of the day, there is a lot of stuff that has been already done and achieved by researchers, by the scientific community, engineering community, and so forth. In many regards, it all boils down to implementation, Mark, and whether it's electronically steerable antennas or superior processing, IP processing in modems. It all, at the end of the day, boils down to how much you can do in hardware, how much you can do in software, and when it comes down to hardware, how much you can actually implement in terms of processing power, whether it's packets per second or megasymbols per second, how much you can implement in a unit of volume, how much you can implement with a 1 watt of consumed power, and how much you can scale it up and down. And these are the things that really matter these days. And this is where we as Comtech believe we have a significant advantage.
No, fantastic. I mean, tell us a little bit about the plan for this year and the rollout of Elevate. What are you hoping to sort of achieve this year?
Well, we are hoping that this product, we're starting our launch just now. I think as actually this week as it happens, we will be hosting a series of seminars, webinars, more like these days. So we will be explaining advantages of this solution to our customers, potential customers. We will be following this up with a more extensive presentation, publications in the media, but also presentation at the satellite show in Washington. Hopefully, will go ahead pretty soon, and so forth. And of course, we will be making demonstration systems available to the customers. We will have some anchor projects with our customers as well, and hopefully they will be able to see the advantages of this new technology for themselves.
And who are your main target customers for Elevate?
Right. So we believe that this is a true multi-service platform. So our traditional, we have actually two main kind of groups of market segments, not even market segments. So one is the relatively kind of small to medium-sized networks with a cellular backhaul, in other words, MNOs and service providers. They cater for the needs of MNOs. So mostly larger kind of Node B's base stations, and that has been traditionally serviced either by our SCPC modems or advanced VSAT, and in the recent years, Heights product, right? So a pretty well-established product, baselined by a number of satellite operators as well as MNOs. And the second group is more like a wide area coverage. Yes, it can still be cellular backhaul, but it could be what we call rural or ultra-rural, significantly greater number of stations, somewhat slower throughput, so than in that first group of customers. And then in the same group, the second group, I would mention larger scale enterprise networks, ultimately SCADA networks, and broadband access networks. Our largest network of that kind counts 19,000 remotes. So a huge difference with the first group of networks where kind of 90, 50 sites per remote. So then you can see that the answer to your question is that the beauty of the Elevate product, that it can cater for both. We don't have to offer two distinct solutions to those two groups of customers.
And in terms of sort of site, I mean, you mentioned some demonstration projects there, and some, doing some work at the satellite show, presenting it. What is sort of the timeline, do you think, for sort of commercial deals and rollout in terms of with customers?
Indeed. So that really depends on how those initial trials and demonstrations will go. All being well, we expect commercial rollout to take place sometime in the summer in 2022, so mid 2022.
I mean, it was interesting. You talked about the background there, and UHP networks and combining. Is this even within Comtech? I mean, we know Comtech launches a lot of great technology, but even within the context of Comtech, one of the most significant product launches in recent years. How would you rate Elevate in terms of importance for the company compared to, I guess, the last couple of years?
Well, it's something that we are definitely taking very seriously as Comtech. So we made a decision years ago when we started focusing on the Heights product that VSAT platforms and network products is one of the key aspects in the company growth. And which is why, of course, we went ahead and acquired UHP Networks as well. So I would answer your question by saying that it is definitely a fulfillment, a logical step in fulfilling our plan derived from acquiring from the acquisition, right? And so we said we would do it, and that's what we're doing. And so it basically, therefore, ranks in the order of priority and importance, Mark, in a similar fashion as acquisition of UHP Networks. We did it for a reason. We see fantastic growth opportunities. The fact that we're doing it now validates our original plan, and so therefore it ranks highly, and once again confirms that our initial strategy was absolutely correct.
I mean, it's always interesting when talking to companies like Comtech, because when we talk about this being such an exciting era for the industry, for someone that has been in the industry many years, when we're looking at sort of the latest ground tech and the new technology here, is this one of the most challenging but exciting times to be involved in this industry right now?
Absolutely, Mark. It's look, indeed, over 30 years, I have been I've been privileged to be part of this industry, satellite and to some extent wireless. Spent some years working for a major cell infrastructure manufacturer, and so it's indeed, if you kind of look back, well, partly, of course, it's fueled by the trends that exist in the high-tech industry and semiconductor industry overall. So maybe Moore's law, or maybe availability of spectrum. So, I mean, yeah, you look back and you remember the days when some people were saying that global constellations is just a pipe dream, that they will never be launched. I remember the days when some people, university professors, actually college professors, were trying to prove with some kind of seemingly rigorous analysis that even global coverage by wireless cellular systems are impossible, that just from spectrum reuse, spectrum utilization point of view. And of course, those pessimists and naysayers' views have been refuted by progress of the industry, where we not only we have a global coverage by terrestrial cellular, which is a great achievement if you think about it, to a large extent fueled by and supported by what we're doing in the satellite industry in terms of backhauling and creating that global infrastructure. But also we're seeing the birth and successful rollout of those global constellations. Once again, the doubters were proven wrong, and the industry is certainly delivering on its promise. So absolutely, very exciting time, and the right time for new engineers to come in and to join our industry, which I greatly encourage all our listeners to do.
Fantastic. Now, with these Thursday morning conversations, Vagan, we always end with some fun questions. So we're talking a lot about technology. So we're gonna end by talking about sports. So it's particularly lots of things going on in sports at the moment. Some great games in the NFL yesterday, I noticed. A sports star you most admire and why? Who are you a big fan of sports wise?
Right. Well, so much like with industry figures, the answer is not just one person, one character. Perhaps it's the kind of trait of their personality. And of course, there are some individuals that embody that trait. So I would start by mentioning, maybe sort of being here in Canada as I am now, it's probably most appropriate to talk about ice hockey as people expect me to. So I would say that the likes of Shea Weber, for example, a well-known ice hockey player, the current captain of the Montreal Canadiens. He's kind of sitting out this season due to an injury. But the thing about him, right, is that it's the quiet determination, the style of leadership that he has displayed over the years, and of course his longevity, the fact that he was able, without too much kind of fanfare, to lead the Montreal Canadiens, to lead his team to the Stanley Cup Finals last season, and he managed to do that while playing through not just one, not just two, but multiple very serious injuries, the ones that basically at the end, it looks like will most likely bring an end to his career, unfortunately. But he certainly managed to end his career, if that's what it will come to, on a high note. So the quiet leadership style, determination, and basically are the and at the end achieving results, of course, because one can be determined and position himself or herself as a leader, but actually never able to deliver on the promise. But Shea Weber did, and that's why I admire him.
No, excellent. And when we talk about sporting events in our lifetime, and so many big events, it would be hard for me to name one. But I'm going to ask you to name one, Vagan. What would you say is the most memorable sporting event in your lifetime?
Well, I would say these are the events. Of course, I can talk about my kids. I can talk about the first home run that my elder daughter scored. I can endlessly talk about dozens and dozens of tournaments that I have three kids. And they both play in competitive teams, so as you can imagine, I have lots of stories like this. But if we're talking about elite sports and kind of professional and major league sports, somehow this is where the bridge between the satellite industry and the professional sports comes in, because as it happens during satellite shows, often courtesy of our partners, or otherwise we get to see some of the sports games. And of course, in Washington at the Capital One Arena. And I remember the Washington Capitals playing, I think it was around 3 years ago, or 3 and a bit years ago, when Alex Ovechkin scored his 600th goal. That was quite an exciting time, I think, an exciting game which they won. And then I remember perhaps with a different feeling. But I remember in 2020, at the onset of the pandemic, COVID-19, the game that was played, the Wizards were playing, I think, Utah Jazz, and that was, I think, the last game that the NBA had. After that game, the season was put on hold, and again, it's kind of was a historical moment, and again, something like pretty much with that Caps game that I was referring to earlier, that I had the opportunity and the privilege to share with many people from the satellite industry.
Well, fantastic. I think that was a great event in which to talk about. Vagan, it's been an absolute pleasure today to talk everything from heroes of the satellite industry, Elevate, great new technology from Comtech, ice hockey and sports. A lovely combination to have in a conversation. I just want to go on record and wish you and everybody else at Comtech a successful year. We know that you're bringing some great technology to market this year, so we wish you all the best for that this year. We're looking forward to seeing you at the satellite show. We wish you, as well as your family and friends, obviously a safe and healthy 2022, and we hope you have a great year. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today about some of this great new technology. As I said, we wish you all the best. Wish you all the best for this year. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Really appreciate you inviting me here. All the best to you, and all the best to the listeners, to the audience, to all the colleagues and friends in the satellite industry. Thank you very much indeed.